Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. A very good day, everyone. This is Dr. Azrul again. We are still in the same topic, exception error. And for today's lesson, we will go into further details on how to handle and manage those exception error that might occur in your program during the education time. We will learn the best practice on how to identify, how to locate, how to catch, and how to throw the exceptions away from your program. According to our previous lesson, I can assume that you should already know how to define different classes of exceptions, their examples, and how it can impact your program. I will start today's topic of content with checked exception and unchecked exception. Unchecked exception is a type of exception or error that will be detected during the runtime or execution time. It is hardly to detect this exception during the compilation time because the program is free from syntax error. On the other hand, check exception will be detected by the compiler during compilation time, and you are forced to check and deal with the exceptions. Once you are free from check exception, then you are free to execute your program. However, in this chapter, we only cover unchecked exception. Alright. In most cases, unchecked exception reflect programming logic errors that are not recoverable. For example, a null pointer exception is thrown if you try to access an object through a reference variable before an object is assigned to it. In the other words, there is no such a way to allow a user to access any object without the object existence. Another example is index out of bound exception. Most commonly, this exception is related to an array of objects or array list. It is thrown if you try to access an element in the array that is outside from the bound of the array. Unchecked exception can occur anywhere in the program. To avoid cumbersome overuse of try and catch block, Java does not mandate you to write code to catch unchecked exception. The following diagram illustrates the checked or unchecked exception. It is the same as the diagram that we have looked in previous session. So we might skip this slide again. Alright. So please give your extra attention, okay, in this slide. Exception handling can be implemented through the following three operations. Okay, three operations. Firstly, by catching exception, and secondly, by declaring and throwing exception. By looking at the example below, you at least should get some bright idea on how you can able to handle an exception. And now we try to look into another example. Okay, now we look into the first operation example, which is declaring the exception. Before we construct our program, we should able to guess what type of exception that might occur during the runtime of our program. And thus, every method must state the type of checked or unchecked exceptions which might throw. The following statements describe how you should write your coding by including throw exception statement. All exceptions thrown by the methods, except error and runtime exception, must be explicitly declared in the method declaration so that the caller of the method is informed of the exception. After declaring the exception and when the program detects an error, the program can create an instance of an appropriate exception type and throw it. Okay, this operation is known as throwing the exception. Look at the following example. The method setRadius required an input value to set the radius value. The method declare an exception at the method header, which called illegal argument exception. And you may find what is the roles and purpose of this exception. There's a Google or anywhere that you can find information about it. And then there is a if-else statement to check whether the input value for the method is above than 0, which is positive, or below than 0, which is negative value. If it is a positive value, then we set the new radius value. However, if the input value is a negative, then we throw an instance of illegal argument exception. Alright, this slide shows the operation of catching and exceptions. Normally, this operation requires two keywords called try and catch. At first, try statement with the curly bracket will provide any statements or program that you wish to execute. Then it will find and catch any exceptions that might occur during the execution time. In the example given, the program involves main method, method 1, and method 2. In program method, there will be a try and catch statement. The numbers of catch statement will depend on your program. Okay, when we are using try and catch statement, sometimes we have a list of several catch statements, and perhaps we did not know how to position those statements in the coding. An error compilation will result if a catch block for a superclass type appears before a catch block for a subclass type. But we are not to put so much concern on this, so we better to skip this. Okay, in this slide, okay, another example is given on how we can handle an exception through catch exception. Okay, which is a try catch statement, and declaring exceptions using throw statement. Read carefully on the examples including the method P1 and method P2. Okay, so far so good. Now we are at the end of our today lesson. The following example demonstrate declaring, throwing, and catching exceptions by modifying the setRadius method in the circle class. The new setRadius method will throw an exception if the input value for the radius is below than 0, which is negative. Okay, this is the complete program that involves the operations for handling an exception. Your task is to look and analyze the program, which focusing at the setRadius method and the main method of the class test program. There are throw examples and try and catch statements as well. Make use of the program as you should able to manipulate or change some of the coding section. Try to execute with different types of input or value and etc. Observe the output that you may get from the program. Sometimes throwing exception cannot be implemented for certain unknown reason. This is rarely to happen, and however, Java programming allowing exception handler to rethrow the exception if the handler cannot process the exception, or the handler simply wants to let its caller to be notified of the exception. However, we are not putting our efforts to look into this example into details. We only concern on how a program can handle exception error through its exception declaration, try catch statement, and throwing exception. And for that, we have reached the end of our today lesson. You may start and continue with your course assignment in this topic, and make sure you can able to provide clear and useful examples to be shared among our class members. I wish you all the best preparation for the course assignment. This is Dr. Azrul. Till we meet again to the next content of lecture. We finish this lesson with Tasbih Kifara and Surah Wal-Asr. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.